Hey, everybody, and welcome to big episode number 73 of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy glory, fantasy excellence, fantasy trinkets, treasures, and everything in between. I am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. We are actually here early in the day, so this is not nighttime. Nat's tired because he's been dealing with the kids all day. This is like early evening, late afternoon. So expect a little bit more sharpness coming from the old noggins today. How you doing, Wolf?
Absolutely, especially I haven't had a chance to accidentally eat an edible before a show or anything of that nature. So I'll be extra sharp, lightning quick.
Rough. Have you been in any of the stores? Have you been in any of the stores in Salem? I mean, were we allowed to talk about that on the air?
I mean, they're legal, right? It's a dispensary, and I haven't yet. I've went in, and it was just Seamus sent me the price menu. Seamus was the first of the Roto Street crew to check it out.
Of course he did. Good
for you. And he sent me the menu, and it was just so expensive. So,
how expensive is it?
It was it was ridiculously double what I would pay from my guy, who's a great connection. I don't want to ruin that relationship, anyways. So I have not been yet. No, but
I like my guy too.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep the guys in business, right? You got customer loyalty.
Right.
So no, I'm clear-headed. I'm clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose type of mentality. You know what show that's from?
No.
You've never seen Friday Night Lights, dude?
No.
Oh, you're a good TV guy too. You got to get some Friday Night Lights in. That show's unbelievable. But yeah, everything's looking great except the breaking news we're going to be discussing in a little bit.
All right, well, let's get right into that. We got a few things to talk about, but not that many, so we have a little time to dive into this deep. Yeah. The breaking news, of course, that the Wolf's referring to, Rob Gronkowski has retired from the NFL with a heartfelt Instagram statement. Do you want to go into this a little bit, Wolf? I mean, we can talk about whether we think this is for real, permanent for real. I have no doubt that it's for real as of this moment.
Yeah.
We can talk about where Gronk maybe ranks in the pantheon as far as all-time guys. We can talk about how this affects the Patriots moving forward and other people and stuff like that. Yeah, let's get into it. What are your thoughts? I mean, you got a lot invested in this guy.
Of course, as a Patriots fan. I mean, there's every which angle. I could do the next hour podcast on Gronk if you wanted to. I absolutely love the guy on the field, so it hurts in that sense. You're losing, in my opinion, probably the best to ever play the position. You got your Travis Kelce's, Tony G's, but unlike them, Gronk's just flat out dominant in both the running game and the pass game. Those guys are kind of pussies with the blocking and whatnot. This guy would pancake defenders in the blocking game, just so physical in both assets. So you got that just on-field dominant presence that Belichick saying, this guy's a major reason for all of our championships. He's elite at everything he did. You just can't really replace a guy like that, but I think it's going to be hit even further. And where Belichick really was praising Gronk is the off-the-field type of energy, the glue guy, that passion. Belichick saying his daily attitude, unmistakably positive energy wherever he went, whoever he touched, it just will never be forgotten with Gronk here. So, I mean, obviously as a Patriots fan, losing both that on-field dominance, that off-field glue style is brutal. And the TB12 saying Gronk was just, it's going to be a major loss. So I get it, and that sucks. But also, just from the unselfish point of view, as a non-Patriots fan, I am kind of glad to see him off the field for at least a little bit. I mean, he's mentally and physically just so beat up. He's a tight end. You're getting hit on every single play, whether you're getting that constant contact of a lineman or you're getting drilled over the middle as a receiver. There's no really play off from contact. So this guy's been getting crushed year in and year out. I'm happy to see him, whether this is permanent or not. I know you were starting to speculate already when you asked the question. I'm happy to see him get a break just as a non-Patriots fan perspective. And then fantasy-wise, I mean, what happens from here? Tom Brady obviously takes a major hit because that's one of the best weapons to ever play the position. Only Julian Edelman really there as a receiver. There's nothing else behind him, so Edelman gets that bump up in terms of who else are they going to throw to. I think James White gets a sneaky bump up here as one of the only other trustworthy pass catchers on this roster. We saw, for whatever reason, people never want to believe in James White, and I get it. Over years past, he's been a lightly used weapon till the playoffs and we unleash him. But last year, this guy was the running back 11 in standard leagues, not just PPR, standard leagues, running back 8.5 PPR. I think this offense is just going to funnel through him, Edelman, in terms of the passing game. I think Sony Michel gets a bump up because it becomes even more run heavy. You lose Gronk's blocking ability, but they'll be able to find a blocking tight end that can make up for that. So he gets a bump up too. And that's, I'd say, what the fantasy bump is. But other than that, I know you were hinting at the fact that, is this for real? And
no, I think it's for real. I don't think.
Do you think it's permanent?
I don't know. I mean, he's 29 years old. You know, and as a non-Patriots fan, you know, but so I don't hate Gronk or anything like that. I mean, it makes me happy to see someone that has taken care of himself financially, and you know, the guy could step away and be fine. And
isn't that crazy? The Gronk of all players was the one that
didn't
spend a dime of his.
Maybe not as big an idiot as everybody thinks.
Didn't spend a single dime of his contracts. Only endorsement deals was what he was paying. That's ridiculous. He must have so much fucking money saved up. And that's Gronk.
That's good for him, and he's earned
Absolutely.
it. And I will say, when you said he's arguably the best tight end ever, I mean, he's the best tight end ever. Don't kid yourself. Like, I mean, I know you feel like you have to hedge on stuff like that because there's people that are going to jump all over you. It's like, give me a break. There's nobody that has been as good as him.
Oh, in my opinion, absolutely.
You know, as just an offensive weapon, he's top 2 or 3, maybe number 1. But I mean, when you combine the blocking part into it, I don't believe that it's close. I mean, he's clearly the best tight end ever. And I salute the guy if this is actually the end, and if he gets the itch and comes back halfway through the season or next year or something like that. I hope it works out well for him. What I really don't want to see from this guy is him, you know, doing the right thing, leaving on top, age 29, financially sound, mentally sound, or at least no dumber than he was when he started playing, and then like coming back at the age of 31 and like kind of falling on his face. I don't want to see that.
Absolutely.
So I would as soon stay away if that's going to happen. And, you know, I will only remember him as being a phenomenal tight end for us and an amazing fantasy tight end, except last year. He wasn't that great. But, you know, good for him. And I'm sad to see him go on some level. I admit it.
Absolutely. And if he comes back, I don't think it would be like age 31. It would be probably this year. And Rosenhaus, his agent, already kind of flaming that fuel, saying if the team was struggling, they needed him at some point next year. Let's say, hypothetically, Tom Brady gave him a call and said, Rob, I need you. I wouldn't be shocked if he came back to play a few games, said Rosenhaus. So, I mean, that fires...
Rosenhaus works on commission, by the way.
Of course, yeah. So he's, of course, fueling that fire and speculation. But it wouldn't surprise me either. You know, the playoff run, they're gearing up for it, and they're not the Patriots passing game that we're used to, and he's just like, hey, yeah, maybe these last 2 weeks I'll get warmed up and then go up for a playoff stretch run with the boys. It wouldn't shock me. In fact, our Instagram, I know we're a biased Instagram, we have a lot of Patriots fans, but 58% of them voted.
We have Gronk's brother?
Yeah, we do. He loves all our stuff, man. He always is. Yeah, Chris Gronkowski, much appreciated. But I'm sure maybe he voted on it. I should double check what his side of the vote was, because 58% of our 58% said Gronk's going to return. So more than half are thinking he comes back. And I lean on that side too. As long as Brady's still out there and we got a shot at titles, I don't think we can rule Gronk coming back. But as you said it all perfectly. The guy goes out on top. He's got everything from the money to the just status of being the best ever to play. So if he doesn't come back, you know, it's great. I'm sad to see that presence gone, especially as a Patriots fan. But good for the guy. He made himself a legendary career, a Hall of Fame career. Unbelievable.
All right, so we start with, talking about who we agree is the best tight end in the history of football. So now we'll go to the second best tight end in the history of football, Jared Cook, who has been strongly linked to the Saints over the past 2 weeks. He's reportedly not going back. He's not going to back out of his commitment to New Orleans, despite the fact that the Patriots are showing some interest in him in the wake of the Gronk retirement. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it obviously makes sense for the Patriots to try to go after this guy, and it sucks that they didn't go after him harder early on. Just kind of like the Adam Humphries. They had the guy they really wanted. They didn't give him enough up front early on, and then he signed with someone, and they give him a second offer, and they're like, no, we'll be even better, and they just don't want to go back on their word, back on their contract, which sucks. I don't get it. Why don't you want to come join the best team to ever play? You get yourself a good shot at the Super Bowl, but whatever. So, I wish we had Jared Cook. He'd be a great replacement. I'm I'm guessing they're going to go. This is, if there's ever a year for the guy to retire, a very tight end rich draft. So maybe we get Noah Fant or these Iowa guys. Iowa just breeds tight ends over there. So who knows what happens there? But Jared Cook to the Saints is definitely crucial to analyze from a fantasy perspective, because we've been chasing the next Jimmy Graham since I'd say 2015, when this guy had 13 touchdowns and was just the unstoppable force alongside Gronkowski. It was just, you had him, you had Graham, you had Gronk, and you were set the rest of the year at tight end. You were going to outscore your opponent, no doubt, at that position. And we haven't really seen that since. We've constantly been chasing it, and no one's been able to recreate it, whether it was Kobe Fleener's disgusting ass, whether it was Josh Hill, Ben Watson's corpse. We've never really seen that revival of a truly usable tight end, but Cook really gives it the best shot at it. I mean, last year on the disgusting Raiders, he had 101 targets, 68 catches, 896 yards, and 6 TDs, and was the tight end 5 in fantasy. And that was with the Raiders, with Derek Carr throwing him the ball in Gruden's just conservative, shitty system. And that's a testament to this guy's athleticism. 6'5", 39.5 vertical, was rumored to have run a 4.37 40 at his pro day. I mean, Jesus. Just ridiculous athleticism for the size this guy is. And we've already seen Sean Payton maximize a size-speed mismatch with Jimmy Graham. He's going to have the ultimate size-speed mismatch with Jared Cook here. And yeah, of course, you got alpha number 1 Michael Thomas there. You got the smooth Alvin Kamara that he's not going to become, bumped down on the target totem pole, but Cook has a very clear-cut path to that number 3 target. We never saw Traquan Smith, as much as we wanted to happen, emerge as a clear-cut number 2 receiver, and there's no Ted Ginn is just kind of more the deep ball, lid-lifting guy. Cook could easily be the third highest targeted guy here, and this is the Saints offense that just consistently puts up point after point, lives in the red zone, where Cook's skill set would be deadly with that leaping ability, with that size, with a quarterback in Drew Brees that puts the ball wherever he wants it. This could be just monstrous in terms of fantasy. So he goes all the way up. He needs to be in everyone's top 7 tight ends. He's my tight end 5, just where he finished last year, with even more upside. There is that inconsistency. He's always been that big play, like has those monster 180-yard days, and then does nothing for 4 weeks. And he was similar to that last year. He was under double digits in 9 of 16 games. So over half the time, you weren't getting a truly usable stat line, but he had those monsters, and I think those monsters will be more consistent when you're in such a good offense as the Saints.
Quick question, going back to Gronk for just a second. This is purely speculative. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. You know how the Patriots offered Antonio Brown actually more than the Raiders ended up offering, and the Steelers were like, "Screw you," and didn't trade him to the Patriots.
Yeah.
You think if they'd gotten Antonio Brown, maybe Gronk would have hung around?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think the radio shows around here have been speculating a lot about that. Like, when he looks at this receiving core, he's like, well, I'm going to get the fucking shit beat out of me again because there's no one to take attention away. And this offense as a whole is going to be puttering a bit more. Why would I come back for that? There's a lot of speculation going on with that. And yeah, if you had that much of a loaded cast, Brown and Edelman outside you, and then you got Gronk, I think that would be so enticing. And I honestly think maybe they could have paid him some more. I don't know that we did all we could to try to keep Gronk either. You know what I mean? I could have seen him come back. You said he's only 29. He still is, even though he looked a bit more banged up last year, he still was a very productive player, especially down the stretch. I could have seen him staying if we had something that exciting for him to be a part of.
And who knows? Josh Gordon could show up in week 9 or something and come back too. I mean, it's a possibility. For all the pain in the ass behavior from this guy, he seems to have kept a pretty good relationship with the Patriots. So
they love him. Brady always commenting on his posts, and Belichick still says, hey, we hope to have him back. I really hope he makes his way back. We clearly need him at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. All right, we're going to get into our featured segment. This is the team, the all-in team, and that is exactly what it sounds like. The guys where we have planted our flag, and we are in mid-March, mid to late March, declaring these are the guys we have to have now. And, we tend not to waver on stuff like this unless there are major developments over the course of the next 5 or so months. So we're just going to give you a little bit of a preview on who we like, why we like them, and how much more we like them than the other so-called experts out there. We're going to start, and this should not surprise you. This is who we have been affectionately referring to as the 2019 Pat Mahomes, not to be confused with the actual 2019 Pat Mahomes, who we had also really loved to have. But Baker Mayfield, he's the quarterback on our all-in team, and we're 29 spots higher than the experts on Baker. We've talked about him a little bit, not a little bit, a decent amount. in our post Super Bowl podcast, obviously the acquisition of Odell Beckham, much improved, personnel in the backfield. Why? I mean, those are some of the reasons. How much do you love this guy? Where do you put him on your board? Why do you think the experts are so much lower on him than you?
I mean, that's a tough question to answer. I don't see what there isn't to love other than the fact that he's not fully proven like was the case against Pat Mahomes last year. There's risk in the unknown. There's no real risk in my opinion here. I think this guy is going to be an absolute monster. And the only reason before I get into that, dude, how sad is it, though, that none of us are probably going to own Pat Mahomes because we don't take quarterbacks that early? Like, we've only had 1 year of it, and now it's over.
It's too bad. The only time that I can think of with us jumping like that for QB is when you and I went into that high-stakes league together, and Cam Newton was around in like the third or fourth round. We were like, let's do it, and he was terrible. And I will never do. I never have and never will do that again. But Baker's a guy that I will reach for compared to his price. I'm 29, 30 spots higher than him in the rankings because and this was before even Odell gets there, and now I'm just all in completely head over heels for this guy. And I know more people will be bumping up their boards. They have been bumping up their boards, and I'm still 6, 7 spots higher than the experts because he's up to number 2 in my quarterback rankings. As high as we were on Mahomes, I kind of made that mistake of not going fully all in, and he was right around my 7 or 8 QB, which was still 10 spots higher than the experts. But I want to just make that statement. There's no one else I'd rather have than Baker Mayfield outside of Mahomes, so it's going to be Baker Mayfield that I have on all my teams in 2019 because he's not going to come at that third-ish round price, maybe second round. Who knows? Mahomes might be a first rounder at this point. I loved before he even got Odell there. I loved Freddie Kitchens carrying over. He exploded last year for a 4,500 pace under Freddie Kitchens after going for like a 3,300 pace under Hugh Jackson. He knew how to use him the right way. They took more deep shots. He's got the second-rated number 2 deep ball in Pro Football Focus's deep passer rating, and that was when he was throwing to like Rashard Higgins and Antonio Callaway down the field because we know Jarvis Landry wasn't chugging down there. So I mean, to put up those stats with that type of weaponry, and then you add in Odell Beckham, maybe the most explosive weapon in the entire game right now, one of the best deep threats we've seen and potentially ever in this game, but he's been just withering with friggin' Eli Manning's ducks sailing over his head. Those two are just going to be a match made in heaven, fantasy heaven, every heaven that you've ever thought about. So the surrounding talent upgrades with the best weapon in the game right now, Odell, getting there with the Freddie Kitchens, plus then they add Todd Monken, who called the second heaviest deep passing rate last year. Both Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick were the top 2 in yards per attempt and deep yardage, deep air yards per attempt last year. So we got the Air Coryell with Kitchens, we got the Air Raid with Monken, we got the elite talent all there. All of this is just, with the deep arm of Baker Mayfield, what a perfect marriage. Just one of those things where you just see all the stars aligning. We laid it out time and time again last year with Mahomes. Look at all these stars aligning, the talent, the deep arm, the play calling. All of that's in place for Baker Mayfield. There's no way I see this guy throwing for under 4,900, 5,000 yards or so and 30 to 40 touchdowns. This guy's going to be a fucking monster. I can't wait. All in. Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. And I had some doubts about Baker going into the year. Last year, but man, I mean, he looks really good, and they just keep putting more and more really talented personnel around him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him up around that. I think your yardage estimate is a little bit high, but I could definitely see 30 to 40 touchdowns. I could definitely see like a 34 touchdown season, which is a lot. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns, 34, 35
absolutely.
touchdowns.
And think about the Bucs quarterbacks. I mean, combined, and this is Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston, who I think we can both agree Baker Mayfield's better than. Yeah. They combined for 51 or 5,200 yards, the most passing yards per game. It was over 320 per game in the league last year, and that's with those two. So if we get a full season, of Mayfield,
I wonder what Fitzpatrick averaged there. He was probably like averaging substantially more a game than Winston, I would guess, because
Winston was still around 300. Yeah, Fitzpatrick had those like a couple of those 400 yards,
several 400-yard games. Like,
but that's Fitzpatrick. Either way, it's still Fitzpatrick having those games. I mean, this
is a good segue actually, because the next one that you're all in on is Jameis Winston, and I don't agree. I mean, I agree that he has the potential to put up some real points. There's no way I'm ever going to go all in on Jameis Winston on anything. So you sell everybody on all the weapons and the coach, and we've talked about this before, so a lot of this is going to be repetitive stuff. But even with all that stuff, I would always have to hedge on Jameis Winston. I'm just saying that as a disclaimer before the Wolf talks about how all in he is on him. So go ahead.
And when I say all in, this is all in as my QB2. Baker Mayfield's my number one. I'm going all in, but as my backup, because I like to at least have my upside quarterback number one, and then definitely a good stab as number two. And then sometimes I balance it out with Phillip Rivers' floor. Winston's kind of that upside number two that I want to invest in. I agree that, he's been so shaky at times over his career that you can't go all in and just only draft Winston and be like, yeah, now I'm set at quarterback. There's no way. No. God, no. Like, if you go Winston as your number one, then you have to have a Phillip Rivers or one of those high floor guys to back him up, no doubt about it. But I do love the fact that at first I was going to go completely out of the Bucs offense. They lost Monk and the guy I love, and then they bring in Bruce Arians, who might even be an upgrade over this. This guy is one of the most explosive play callers, the no risk it, no biscuit type of mentality. Just the offensive scheme he's bringing is enough for me to want to fall in love with Winston. But even more important than that, in my opinion, would be his just history as being a QB developer, a relationship builder, a guy that can just get his guys to feel comfortable with being criticized and not kind of wilting, which is what we've seen with Winston. Is he gets some heat and he starts to crumble and it really starts to shake. He just collapses by the end of it all. I think just the fact that Arians comes in is already like, this is my quarterback, Winston. There's no competition. I don't need Ryan Fitzpatrick back. I have my guy. The fact that they used to actually work together at QB camps, Winston used to go to his quarterback camp, and Arians kept saying, I knew from when he was 14 this guy was going to be a star, just the way he approached the game, the way he loved the game, and now I get a chance to work with him. That's why I came out of retirement, was a quarterback like Winston was available for me to be a mentor to. And then you mix in the weapons. Mike Evans, obviously one of the best in the game right now, 6'5", terror at every level of the field, can do it in the red zone, can go deep. He averaged the second most deep yardage behind Tyreek Hill last year. So you got him, you got Godwin who's stepping into the slot role. They're rumored to be a 100-catch guy is what Bruce Arians said he expects out of him in that Larry Fitz slot role. O.J. Howard, 6'6", that moves faster than Mike Evans. The cast is unbelievable. The play calling will be fantastic. And the development, that's probably the most important part for me. The development and the coaching he's going to get under Arians to build that confidence, to keep him, even when he has a bad interception, to keep his head even-keeled. I think Arians is the perfect guy for that. So those three combined to me to make a humongous ceiling for Jameis Winston. I think it's very real that he could hit 45 to 4,800 and 30-plus TDs, and you'll get him in rounds 9 or 10. A perfect quarterback, too. My all-in quarterback, too.
All right, that's fair enough, and that's actually not a bad case. I admit it. I'm going to be maybe glancing his direction if I can snag him late like that. All right, let's talk about running backs. And I know you want to throw in a disclaimer before we actually talk about running backs, because there's a guy that you're high on that maybe we're not going to discuss in this respect because maybe you don't think you're going to end up snagging him. But talk to me about Joe Mixon for a second.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just not that bold to be all in on Joe Mixon, but I'm 7 to 8 spots higher than him. And when it's a guy that's going in round 2, and I take him at 7 overall, above pretty much all but 6 players, that means I'm pretty damn high on this guy. I love the talent. We've both raved about Joe Mixon's talent for 2 to 3 years as a versatile guy with unbelievable vision that's pretty much only matched by Le'Veon Bell when he's on the field. And now you put him in the Todd Gurley style offense, Zach Taylor coming from that Rams system, and Mixon's already said, he's talked to me, he said, I'm going to be that guy. He's training his body for 400 touches. There's no way he's going to get 400 touches, but to get 70-ish receptions potentially, in addition to 230 to 250 carries, just kind of like what Gurley's been doing these last couple of years, Mixon could light the world on fire. So if he's falling around 2 by the time drafts roll around, and right now he's averaging 15, 16 or so. So, if you can get like a DeAndre Hopkins at 8 and then a Joe Mixon in 15, and I would take Mixon over Hopkins, which is how all in I am on him, you'd be off to a ridiculous start. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm very all in on Mixon. I'm going to be higher on him than any expert's going to be out there at 7 overall.
All right, well, let's talk about Dalvin Cook. You're going to have a little bit of your work cut out for me selling me on him, not on his talent, but the fact that we've seen serious to relatively serious injuries, plague him the last 2 years for a running back, especially a young guy like that. It makes me a little bit gun shy. Where do you see him falling in these drafts, and where do you think you could snag him to say, man, I got amazing value for him?
I think you see him falling to late round 2, which is kind of where McCaffrey was going by the end of last year, and that's kind of where I'm just like, that's an insane value, because I think Cook presents as that like next Christian McCaffrey style upside. You already ironed out the two really scary points, or the only scary point, and that's health. It's obviously a contentious point here if he's missed significant time in 2 straight seasons. There's no debating that, and that's the only reason I think this guy would not hit 1,800 total yards and 10 to 12 touchdowns, because everything else checks out as perfect, near perfect for me when you look at the fantasy stock formula. Probably a 27-28 talent. The vision's unreal. The receiving ability is up there with any back in the league. The acceleration, the way he just reads his blocks, everything about him as a runner and a pass catcher I think are fantastic. But now he gets the Gary Kubiak effect mixed in, which I love more than anything. Kubes from his Broncos days.
I do know
coordinating an insane zone blocking running scheme for so many years. He had 22 offenses total that he's coordinated. 14 of those have been top 10 in rushing. 10 of those have finished among the top 5. So nearly half the time he's been top 5 in the league in rushing. Half those teams have been top 5 in rushing TDs because he loves to pound it in when they get close. That's why, when you see the Texans, Andre Johnson would have like 1,800 yards and like 3 touchdowns on the year, because then Steve Slayton would have like 15 touchdowns on the ground, or Arian Foster would be 30 touchdowns. It was ridiculous, because Coobs just likes to run it when he gets in close. He just likes to run it in general all the time, and that scheme is just so productive. 15 of his running backs have topped 1,200 yards, and 13 have gone 1,480, 10 over 1,600, 7 over 1,800. I mean, it's just you can pile it on and on and on. And when he's had the elite talents, the Clinton Portises, the Terrell Davises, the Arian Fosters, those guys have all gone for 2,000 total yard, 18-plus TD monsters. And I think Cook is much more on par with those guys than, let's say, the Olandis Garys, the Mike Andersons, the Reuben Drones, the Steve Slaytons, who have still gone for over 1,510 touchdown seasons. And those guys are nobodies. So you give me a talent like Cook, you put him in this scheme that's made these type of monsters out of nobodies and elite talents alike. It's almost perfect to me, other than health. And health is a huge risk. He grades as like a 4 or 5 out of a bottom barrel risk score. But other than that, he grades out so perfectly that it's one of those things where, as a late second round pick, if you can just bet on the health and you get those 16 games, even 15 games, you're getting yourself an absolute animal. So I love him this year. I'm going to be all in on Cook, especially if he keeps falling to late round 2.
All right, I hear you on that, and that's actually this is good sales pitches for you right now.
Okay, I take it.
The Chiefs backfield. Now we've got Carlos Hyde in the mix. Obviously, you and I were extremely high, and a lot of other people, on Damian Williams, although we were higher on him than a lot of people. Now
we're
Carlos
like 40
Hyde's
spots
here.
higher.
Yeah, now Carlos Hyde's here. What do you think? I mean, what do you make of this backfield? You still think there's value to be had, obviously.
I definitely think there's still value to be had, because even though I am suspecting, suddenly questioning Damian Williams' value right now with Hyde being inserted there, I dropped him 20-ish spots because of it, and I'm still 16 spots higher than the ECR when he's down at 34. So if he's going around pick 50, which is where he's ranked right now, there's no brainer he's going to be on every single one of my teams. He took those usage question marks because Hyde does come in there, and now there's a risk that maybe Hyde takes that job, and sure, that makes Damian Williams a much greater fantasy risk, but this is a guy that scored 10 touchdowns in only 6 weeks, that averaged 22.5 fantasy points in that span as a starter. Brett Veach comes and saying it's Damian's job to lose, so there's still tons of upside. I'm not saying I'm off the Damian Williams train. It's that, again, I'm still 15 spots, 16 spots higher than the experts, even after giving him a drop of 20 points. The thing you got to do, though, and what happens now is if you draft Damian Williams, and if you don't draft Damian Williams regardless, you have to draft Carlos Hyde. Again, whether you own Williams or not, you have to have Carlos Hyde this year, too. He's going around like pick 150 right now, and Hyde's, I think, in my opinion, just as talented, if not a more talented runner than Damian Williams. This guy's a bruiser. I just feel like he's never truly gotten his due. He just always gets it done and doesn't look sexy, but he's a bulldozer. He's always churning forward. And when you give him the holes that he would find in this offense, when you got Pat Mahomes leading the charge and you got all these deep weaponry around him and you can't stack the box against that, that's why Damian Williams and Kareem Hunt, they're talented guys, but they have just been feasting on this glorious setup. So maybe that does end up being Carlos Hyde. Everyone says, his receiving ability sucks and it's not, that's going to keep him back and that's why you can stay all in on Williams. Hyde did have 59 catches just 2 seasons ago under Kyle Shanahan.
Not nothing.
that's not nothing. And I mean, Damian Williams himself has come out and said in high school, I couldn't catch the ball at all. My high school coach called me after the season and was like, when the hell did you learn how to do this? You couldn't even catch a screen ball. And he said, Andy Reid put me on the jugs every day at practice, developed me. So who says, Carlos Hyde can't get that similar guidance, can't blossom under that type of guidance, just as Damian Williams did when he became a Chief. So to me, I'm all in on the backfield. I'm going to get both guys just to lock up that number one running back. Andy Reid's always provided the volume to one guy. He's always ridden a key horse. His running backs have averaged just under 20 fantasy points per game because he's always been such a number one running back style guy. I just don't know which one it's going to be at this point. So if it only takes me the 53rd-ish overall pick and the 175th pick to find out, one of those guys is going to be a top 7 guy, in my opinion. Obviously, if you go both of them and it becomes a committee and a timeshare out of nowhere, and Hyde gets the touchdowns and Williams gets the passing guy, that would suck. But in my opinion, it's never been that way under Reid. And so for a mid-round and a late-round investment, you're getting yourself a real shot at a top 7 guy. To me, that's a no-brainer, all-in move.
All right, so when we get to wide receivers, obviously there's some guys near the top of the chart, but there's some guys that you are interested in, later round guys. And when we talk about later round guys, I've always thought this is, obviously you can win your draft with like the player of the year or something. But if you have these later round guys and you're able to snag, 3 or 4 of them, which is not that unreasonable when you're talking about guys that are somewhat below the radar for other people, these are league winners. Like, this is adding depth to your bench. This is like always having a number 3 receiver or a number 2 receiver if they pan out, never having to worry about who you're going to, put in your flex because you've always got a viable option. And there's a few guys you like. And so this is a pretty good list. You like to have a couple pieces of this air raid offense, this alleged air raid offense in Arizona. There's been a lot of talk about Kyler Murray going as the number 1 pick in Arizona. Farewell Josh Rosen, if that is true. And you obviously are interested in both Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, this air raid offense, the alleged air raid offense, I think it's going to be a bomb show. I really was impressed with Drew Hollingshead. We had him on 3 to 4 podcasts ago, who coaches under air raid guru Mike Leach. And what I think was important, maybe the biggest takeaway from the entire interview with him was, you think air raid, and it just sounds like bomb, 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 bomb all over the place. And that's why I think everyone's just like, oh, Larry Fitzgerald, old man, like he doesn't have those legs to thrive in an air raid offense. But what he made very clear is, yes, there's the 4 verticals and there are some deep routes involved here, but this offense is actually meant for the wide receivers who can kind of be savvy in their routes and know when to pause a route and find that soft spot and know who can ever rack up the yards after the catch. It's all about creating these huge space opportunities for these wide receivers. And Larry Fitz is as smart as they come, as savvy of a route runner as there is, and he's still great after the catch. The guy's a horse when he runs with the ball. So to me, Larry Fitz, and this is what Drew said as well, Larry Fitz just fits everything you'd want out of an air raid receiver. So I think there's this misconception of what the air raid's meant to do and what Larry Fitzgerald's skill set is. It actually matches the air raid offense perfectly. Now, Christian Kirk is more athletic at this point, and he can also run the entire route tree, so he might come with some more upside. Maybe that's why he's ranked significantly higher than Larry Fitz, but I'm still, I'm 52 spots higher than the experts on Fitz. I'm about 10 spots higher than them on Kirk, and I'll take them both. I want a piece of that air raid offense because I do think it's going to pan out, especially. I'd be a little bit hurt if it ends up being Josh Rosen and not Kyler Murray throwing the ball. This ranking kind of assumes Murray is going to be the guy, because that gets me real jazzed up, because our guy has said he wanted to, not our guy, but their coach has already come out and said this is the guy I would take number 1 overall. This is who I'd want to build an offense around. So if that ends up being it, I'm going to be all in on Larry Fitz and Christian Kirk to get some pieces of that air raid offense.
So first of all, I think that Murray would be a good pick for Arizona, but I want to just say, I just want to go on record as saying I'm not convinced that Josh Rosen's terrible.
He might not be.
I'm really not convinced. What a terrible team that he was put on and asked to run. And they were better with him in than not with him in. They were. I know he didn't look great, but what an awful team he was put on. So I'm not.
Awful system.
I'm willing to believe someone is going to trade for Rosen at 20 cents on the dollar and get a decent quarterback out of it. I really think that's going to happen. I could be wrong. Maybe he's a total bust, but I haven't seen anything that makes me think the guy's a bust. So
absolutely,
if they move on, I feel like he's value for somebody.
I think so too, Nat. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has all the arm talent in the world as well, and you'd get for cheaper than you paid. Obviously, you might only take a second round, maybe even a third round pick is what they're being offered right now. And this is going to be a quarterback under a very cost controlled contract as a rookie. That's when you find these teams, they find the right rookie and they can buy so much talent because it's so few dollars invested in the quarterback position. If someone takes a risk on Rosen, he does end up panning out with all that arm talent. You're now in the golden setup that's made. Jared Goff's rookie contract has let them go out and get all dirt cheap. So they've gone out and just loaded talent around him. No one, if he gets with the right coach and coordinator, there's no saying Josh Rosen can't have a Jared Goff turnaround. I'm with you, absolutely.
And I'm not saying at all that this situation would be an ideal situation for anybody to fall in, but let's just be honest. Would you rather have Eli Manning or Josh Rosen?
Oh, Josh Rosen, 100%. I think the Giants would be foolish to not consider him for a second or third round pick.
I mean, what a no-brainer.
That would be the first smart thing they do this offseason if they go and sign Josh Rosen and trade for him.
I mean,
I'm with you, man.
That might be
a smart move.
Place to kill his career, though. Who knows?
I would like to see the Patriots go after him. To be honest, if it would take
seriously.
As Brady's potential successor, get him in the system. I would love to see that move.
Yeah, I bet you would. I hope it doesn't happen. D.D. Westbrook. This is a guy that we've been high on at various times, been disappointed with at various times, but the talent is unmistakable. And there's a lot of talent, surrounding him now, and he's got a real quarterback, right?
A real quarterback with a real hog in the pants, and Nick Foles. I mean, what's better than that? Blake Bortles gets out of there, and Nick Foles, humongous surrounding talent upgrade. Even if Foles, I don't think he's this world beater. Unbelievable
he's
quarterback.
He's a solid starting quarterback, I think.
He's a Super Bowl MVP, and I saw it firsthand. And he got the third highest vacated target total here somehow in this anemic passing game. 257 targets are now up for grabs, and that's probably going to be even more volume because John DeFilippo is coming in as their offensive coordinator. He was the pass-happiest mind in the NFL till he got fired at Week 13 for being too pass-happy. He averaged 40 pass attempts per game, the highest pass rate at 67% before getting the axe there. Yeah, I get Doug Maroni's kind of a hard-nosed guy and wants to pound the rock, but DeFilippo is going to be the one calling the offense, and he's going to be calling a ton of pass plays. And even better is his track record of developing his slot guys and dominating production from that position. Adam Thielen last year was the number 2 wide receiver, averaging 18.5 points per game, while John DeFilippo was there, and then he collapsed at the late season stretch run when they moved on from DeFilippo. But this guy was a monster, and Adam Thielen's a great talent, and I'm not saying Westbrook's on that level, but you look at Nelson Aguilar. He's been useless the rest of his career, but when DeFilippo was there last year, he goes and or 2 years ago, he has 8 touchdowns, moves under the slot. DeFilippo recommended that move and just schemed a lot of deep plays out of the slot too, which Westbrook, he's got that 4.4 speed. He played 73.9% of his snaps out of the slot, caught all 5 of his touchdowns last year from the slot. That was the most of any wide receiver in the NFL. So you got this guy who had some real production last year with an awful quarterback, and now gets a guy that can call way better plays out of the slot and gets a quarterback that can actually throw the ball. To me, that's a ton of right boxes getting checked off for Westbrook, and this guy's going well beyond pick 100 right now. That's a ton of upside, in my opinion.
All right, Dante Moncrief. This is another guy that we've both been burned on in the past.
I know. Isn't it funny, though, we keep chasing the same guys? Derrick Henry, Dante Moncrief.
Get away. You identify the specs for guys that you really like, oh my gosh, freak athlete. And it's not like you're wrong. And then they'll disappoint us. And then you're like, I'm out on this guy. And then the next season rolls around and you're like, he's still big. He's still fast.
It's so true. But to me, it's, yes, you see those specs, and you see some on-field, too. I'm a big specs guy. I'm a big athlete guy. I love the advanced analytics. But I do love watching the tape, and I like seeing how people perform when situations are around them that now are matching the situation that I think Moncrief finds himself in. So the last time this guy actually had a legitimate, I guess we'll start with his specs because that's the easiest spot to start.
That really are getting you excited.
6'2", 220 pounds. Combine leading 4.40.
40-inch vert.
Almost 40-inch vertical that also led the combine. So this guy's always going to be the limit when you got that size, that leaping ability, and that speed. It's just deadly if you can be used the right way. And now, though, he goes from the disgusting Jaguars, obviously you're going to rot on the Jaguars, to now going to the most wide open aerial pie in the NFL when you get Antonio Brown and Jesse James out of there. Now it's 240 targets are available, 2,547 air yards are available, and sure, Juju Smith's going to be the largest commander of that aerial pie, but that's an enormous size aerial pie in Pittsburgh. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback in Big Ben. To me, who's going to seize that? I think it could easily be Dante Moncrief, who the team bought in, and especially if the Steelers, who evaluates receivers better than the Steelers? So if they want to go out and get Moncrief and pay him a decent-sized contract, I'm going to believe in that scouting department because they really have not missed on a wide receiver in quite some time. The Steelers haven't. And then you look at, what did this guy do when he actually had decent quarterback play? I mean, the last 2 seasons he's been destroyed and anchored by Blake Bortles and Jacoby Brissett. No one's going to produce in that hell. But when he had Andrew Luck on the field, Moncrief got banged up at times too, but there's over those 2 seasons before, they had 14 games together. Moncrief recorded 12 touchdowns, almost one per game, when Andrew Luck and him were both on the field. So, I mean, he's got that, and that makes sense. He's got that size, speed, leaping ability combo. When you got a quarterback that can actually throw the ball and take advantage of that, he's produced. And now he's going to find that quarterback. This is a guy that has all the measurables of Martavis Bryant without the off-field drama, and even better, he's not going in round 4 or 5. He's going in round like 15. So to me, that's a no-brainer. We'll see what else they do in the offseason, if they probably draft some wideouts as well. But I just really love, at 181 ECR especially, I think that needs to be 100 spots higher. Moncrief just drips in upside, and either way, he's going to be a screaming bargain. I want him on my team this year.
And here's your real home run ball. If you thought the Moncrief thing was a long shot, Trey Quinn, 240 spots above the experts. That's right. Sell the public, Wolf.
Trey Quinn of the Redskins, baby. And there's only 2 words you need to know for why I love Trey Quinn, and that's slot slut. And that Trey Quinn, he's going to be taking over now that Jamison Crowder has departed the Jets. They've already mentioned, and Maurice Harris now gone too to the Patriots. They've already said Trey Quinn is going to be sliding into that slot role. Jay Gruden has loved this guy since last preseason, labeling him a quarterback's best friend type of target, a quiet assassin, very detailed in the roots, great hands, very quarterback friendly, could line up all over the place. This was what he was saying last year, and Quinn was banged up a lot of the year, and of course that's a major risk with a guy of his size. But when he was in college at SMU, led the NCAA with 114 receptions, almost all of that coming inside from the slot, 75% of his targets and 7 of his touchdowns. Lowest drop rate of any receiver, 1.7%. And he doesn't have that straight line speed of 4.45 5.40, but he catches everything. He's got that short area burst, the 6.913 cone. So he's going to be a dominant slot presence there, and that's even going to be more exasperating because Case Keenum, slot, as I said, is the quarterback. No quarterback's targeted the slot weapons more than Case Keenum over the last 2 years. Adam Thielen in Minnesota is 25% slot share, dominated. You say cut it?
Yeah, your audio just got too bad.
Shit.
It's still bad. Remember when that happened the other day? And I told you it was like during the last hour of the podcast or the last minute of the podcast, but the thing ended. I kept hoping it would stop, but it we can't use that part.
Okay, just for Trey Quinn, you're saying.
Yeah, we're gonna have to start over with that.
Okay, should I hang up? It's still shitty right now.
Yeah, it's still bad.
Okay. The Wi-Fi is still the same. I'll hang up and then we can see
it's just your audio. The connection's fine. I can see you and everything.
Dude, you know what? One sec. I'll call you back, and then I think I know what it is.